Now, way back in the Pot Auger days, when I was just a youngster, the hockey was our winter sport, and I know we had some fun, sir. No matter what the weather was, each weekend was the same. We'd all show up at Joby's house to watch the hockey game. Now, half the town was for the Leafs, the other for the Habs. I don't remember real fights, but lots of verbal jabs. A few of us liked other teams. People didn't mind us. They figured we were strange, I suppose, but probably mostly harmless. But the NHL for sure was not the only game around. We had a wicked team ourselves for such a little town. The Jets is what we called them, and they made the bad guys quake. They were known and feared by all the teams from Striver to Mud Lake. Well, truth be told, there only were two other teams, I guess. The Flyers and the Flames were kind of frightened, more or less. The Flames were from the Valley and the Flyers from Goose Bay, two great big towns in Labrador, an hour's drive away. I lived in Northwest River, which was only small, you see, though at the time 300 people didn't seem that small to me. And though the town was friendly and the people really nice, the numbers just weren't there to put a team out on the ice. And so we had to get creative to get the numbers up to par, and in isolated Labrador we couldn't look too far. We got some guys from Goose Bay and from the Valley too, and finally had enough to go from one line up to two. But never three, it seems to me. The Jets all played a lot. We might be perished in the stands, but the boys were always hot. The airport restaurant was the sponsor, and so the story goes. The Jets were paid $10 a goal. Free pizza too, I suppose. And so we had our three-team league, and I recall the names. Woodward's Flyers from Goose Bay, and from the Valley, Vickers Flames. But our boys quickly got the name for putting pucks in nets. The Northwest River, Happy Valley, Goose Bay Airport Restaurant Jets. We had Michelin on the left wing and Michelin on the right. At center we had Michelin, good speed but not much height. Our right defence was Michelin, with Michelin to his left. The goalie was a Michelin too, perhaps Hayward, Dick or Fred. Now it wasn't only Michelin's, but you'd believe me if I tried to say we had a tire plant or perhaps a restaurant guide. We also had McLean's, a Blake, and from the coast a Nitzman. Don't know about the first two now, but Nitzman's close to Michelin. And the coach was Mackie Winters, well liked and well respected. He'd let the boys know fast if play was not what he expected. The manager was Searle, who spent his summer salmon fishing. A nicer man you'd never meet, but now we're back to Michelin. On game night all hands would pile aboard of Cecil Blake's old van. No blizzard ever stopped a Northwest River hockey fan. Though it might be minus 30 in midwinter, well, you know, the arena in the valley could be 35 below. A noisy crowd is what we were, though always few in numbers, and when our boys scored we'd stamp our feet. 'Twas almost like the thunder. Even when they didn't score we'd stamp and yell and cheer to try to keep from freezing. It was savage cold in there. We'd all go across to Mary Brown's when intermission came, to try to get on thawed before we went back to the game, 'cause there's nothing like the French fries and hot coffee when you're froze, and you got frostburn on your nose and on your ears and in your toes. Then back into the arena with our chicken, chips, and drink, with nose and ears and toes gone back from blue to pink. The players back out on the ice, the face-off near at hand, the excitement in the building almost more than you could stand. 'Twas the last game of the playoffs, see? The score tied 2-2. The Jets had barely tied it up with goals from Chum and Goo. The ref had barely dropped the puck. The Flames were quickly rushing. The air was thick with tension. Sure, the Stanley Cup was nothing. Now the air was thick with something else for this, the final game, and the longer that the game went on, the thicker it became. A mild spell was on the go. The temperature was soaring. Visibility was down in fog, and neither team was scoring. With the ceiling at about 5 feet, there was scarce a man could see. The taller players' heads poked out, looked like stumps in snow to me. The ref looked kind of doubtful, and we thought he'd shut it down. He raised his whistle once or twice, but didn't make it sound. Then all at once the light went on behind the bad guy's net. Though it was kind of hard to follow, there was no doubt a Jet had scored the winning goal just as the final whistle blew. The game was done. The Jets had won. The score was 3-2. 'Twas the last game of the series, too, but the trophy sure looked odd, as the half-seen players held it up and it moved across the fog. And as we piled aboard of Cecil's van, we sang a victory song, then piled back out again to push, his starter motor gone. Who scored the winning goal we found out later on that night. Remember Michelin at the center? Good speed but not much height? He'd had the height advantage as he skated neath the fog and scored an easy one. The goalie sprawled out like a log. And so that was hockey night in Labrador back in my younger day. The Jets were always on our minds September through to May. We thought a lot about our team. We were loyal as it gets to the Northwest River, Happy Valley, Goose Bay Airport, Restaurant Jets.